Hello, YouTubers. Joe of Joe and Paul here, and Paul will be back here shortly. We were sitting here on Saturday, June 29th, around 3:30 in the afternoon, sort of talking about, well, jobs when we were younger, and then that leads into, well, you know how you start talking about something, and then one thing leads to another, and you get different, well, things occur to you, and then you start talking about things. I had been reminiscing about this. Now, I had been reminiscing about this sort of very unpleasant experience after my mother's death with a lawyer that, well, it had nothing to do with the estate. The guy that handled estate handled that very fairly. I mean, he handled it according to the terms of my mother's will, absolutely fairly. But then there was an encounter with another lawyer that my brother-in-law had engaged because he thought I needed a bump on a
issue,
on a county eminent domain issue with the land that was involved. And that's neither here nor there. And that actually has nothing to do with the story here today. Somehow, by the vagaries of the human mind, I got thinking about sort of emergency room stories, and I could wax on that. But I'm going to tell you one or two, and then I'll try to tone down. I want to start off with a bit of a quasi-poem. It's certainly no worse, certainly no less of a poem than some of the crap being written today. Here was my poem, or poem, as I like to say. The thump on the door in the dead of night. The screech of the tires. And the old woman moaning at your feet. Now, in the 1978 era, this is pre-Obamacare. This is pre-Affordable Health Care Act care.
This is dump-off care.
Well, yes, see, dump-off care, and I think Paul captures the essence of that because
It happened.
See, I spent 2 months in the emergency room, 24 hours on, 24 hours off, in November and December of 1975. And very, well, not more than very occasionally, it's getting cold. This was particularly prevalent after Thanksgiving. You'd hear this thump. Now we had, outside the emergency room, we had these two heavy metal swinging doors. They weren't like saloon doors because they went up completely up to the ceiling and the floor, but they were swinging. They swung in and out. They swung in and out. So and they were metal, so you could bang into them with carts, bang into them. And so you hear this boom. And then you hear the screech, the tires. I mean, it's like somebody's, they had like a porte-couture over, outside the emergency room, and people could pull in, and then you'd hear this thump and a screech, and then you'd go out and you'd find this. Generally, it was an old woman, but not always. Sometimes it was an old man, and this would be wadded up like an old snot rag. And they'd be moaning because they'd just been thrown out of the back end of a station wagon or a well, they didn't have minivans then. No, that was before the advent of minivans. They had, well,
and sedans.
And pickup trucks, station wagon pickup trucks. Well, they also had sedans.
Yeah, but pickup trucks did not have 4 doors. So you would have had the guy in the bed of the truck.
Well, that's right. Usually it was a camper top. And where they were going, that was helpful. But, our British friends would call sedans saloon cars. I always loved that phrase, the saloon car. Well, anyway, so you got these guys, either in a pickup truck or a sedan or a car or whatever. And so they're throwing mom or dad out against the swinging doors. And these guys are off to warmer climes. They're going to Florida or somewhere where it's warmer. I dare say they're going to Florida. Now, you couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me to go back down to Florida. Basically, you can't pay me to go much farther south than the 35th parallel, and I don't particularly want to go much farther south than the 40th parallel, and I just live just a few miles north of that right now. For a variety, it has nothing to do with people. The people are wonderful. It's the climate and the bugs. The climate and the bugs. So anyway, so they're going down. After Thanksgiving. We're going to drop mom off. See, this was before. This was still when Medicare was paying for everything. Send a bill to Medicare, they pay it. Send a bill to Medicare, they pay it. Now they don't. Now they pay a little bit of it, maybe. But this was in the heyday of third-party Medicare payments, and so they dropped mom off at the Ohio State University Hotel, so to speak, and off they go. And sometimes these unfortunates would remain there till February or March. Well, now very, very, very occasionally the family would come back and pick them up and collect them. But see, a lot of times these people just flood their apartment too. They just, it's the old move, the truck moving up to the door at midnight, sort of thing, and not only loading in your own stuff, but loading in the appliances of the landlord as well, and off they go to parts, unknown. Well, generally warmer parts.
And they would lie. They would come back. They would come back and they would say, "Oh,
lean in so we can see you.
We were just notified that our mother is here in the hospital for something. So we thought we would come by and see her and visit her and see how she's doing."
Well, yes. Well, there's a lot of smoke.
But they're the ones that dumped her off.
Well, there's a lot of smoke being blown up various fundaments at that point. But I will say that our social work. Now, I listen. I'm not a fan of social workers, qua social workers, but I will say that the social worker, well, certainly not the government-employed social workers, not the ones that work for the county and the state. But the ones that I've met that work for hospitals generally are fairly reasonable, helpful people. And, a lot of times they could shunt these folks off very quickly. They could farm them out somewhere. And not just farm them out. I mean, these people are being taken care of. I mean, these people aren't being, tied, this isn't some sort of 60 Minutes horror story where they're tied to a wall, not like Peter in chains and axe or something like that, where he's in the double stocks and the angel had to come get him out of the prison. I mean, these people are in fairly reasonable conditions. So, it's odd how people's minds work. When you get sort of, wandering back to, I will at some point tell you all more about this great job I had when I worked for the lawyers. But I think, well, Paul's upper GI tract seems to be very highly pressurized today.
What?
I was saying that your upper GI tract seemed to be very highly pressurized today.
Why?
Because you were belching and, trying to swallow air and things. It's all very pneumatic, isn't it? So I'm going to say bye-bye, YouTubers.